So welcome everybody to this latest revision video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be preparing for the AQA GCSE Maths exams of 2022 with a focus on the Foundation Paper 3 Statistics and Probability Advanced Information. Now, as always, there'll be a copy of the question paper that we go through, of the questions that we go through in this video, that you can click on and download and have an attempt at either before watching this video or while watching. So before we get started working through some example questions, let's just have a look at the advanced information given on this section for Paper 3 Foundation. So looking at the statistics, it's looking at two-way tables. So for this, what you need to be able to do is make sure that you are able to read and complete information, and two-way tables is linked with fractions, decimals, percentages and ratios, so make sure that you're able to work with those and incorporate that in common two-way table questions. It's also have links with probabilities, so make sure that you just have some general practice of two-way tables. Vertical line diagrams, well, that's always going to be similar to a bar chart, and again the questions could come up of where you're either drawing a vertical line diagram or you are comparing or criticizing one. Mean from a diagram, well, that can come in many forms, so that could be where you're calculating the mean when you're given a table with frequency data or group data, or it could be where you're working out the mean by looking at a bar chart or a vertical line diagram, which are both mentioned in this section. And remember, to work out the mean, it's the total frequency divided by how many there are. So it's always important that you're able to work with those, and again the examples that we go through in this video will go through some of those questions. The next one is looking at bar charts, and again it's being able to read and draw a bar chart, but also look at criticisms. Now with bar charts, always make sure that you know the difference between the vertical axis, which is the frequency, and the horizontal axis, which is the X data, and that the bars are equally spaced and equally width and drawn correctly with a ruler. The next section is the probability, so looking at frequency trees. So again, make sure that you're able, and again this is very similar to looking at two-way tables, so make sure that in a question you're either going to be completing a frequency tree diagram, and there could be heavy links to fractions, decimals, percentages and ratios in this, and also finding probabilities and using a completed frequency trees to answer some worded problems. And the last one, which is estimate of probabilities, well, this is basically looking and working with relative frequencies, and so whenever you're estimating using probabilities, remember to use the formula that it's always going to be the probability multiplied by the total number of trials. So before we get started, just a little reminder that you can download these questions by clicking on the link in the description, so you can either have an attempt at these questions before watching this video, or you can have a go while we go through the answers. So looking at question 1, which refers to a two-way table, it says the table shows the number of desktop computers and laptops in 50 households. And in the question A, it says how many households have 2 laptops. So for this particular question, what we need to do is we need to look at the laptops row and look at number 2. Now what you want to do is make sure that you're not including the 2 that represents 2 laptops. So you're just adding these 4 numbers together. So it's going to be 1 plus 8 plus 5 plus 0, and that gives us an answer of 14. It then says how many households have more laptops than desktop computers. So if I just get rid of that yellow highlighting, so what we need to look at is where is the laptop number greater than the desktop computer number, and that's going to be these numbers here. So all I then need to do is add those 6 numbers together. So if I do just that, so I've got 5 plus 1 plus 8 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, and again they could be added up in any order, but you should have a final answer of 20. Then moving on to question 2, it says that Eva owns a restaurant. The table shows the number of customers on 4 days. So here we've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, and the lunch and dinner, and we've got a total column as well. So looking at question 8, it says how many more customers in total were there on Friday than there were on Thursday. So what we're looking at here, well, on Friday there were 120 customers, so we're going to do 120, and on Thursday there were 97. So I'm going to do 120 minus 97, which gives me a final answer of 23. Then says she keeps a tally of the number of customers who order pudding each day, and it says complete the table. So what we need to do is just total up the tallies. So this one is going to be 15 and this one here is going to be 24. It then says what fraction of Friday's customers ordered a pudding. So here all we need to do is simply look at the Friday puddings, which was 30, and how many customers did we have on Friday. If we look back at the original table, there was 120. So I do 30 over 120. Now the question does specify to give your answer in its simplest form, and we can simplify this by 3 over 12, which then becomes 1 over 4. So final answer is 1 over 4. If I gave any of these previous two fractions, they would only get the 1 mark because I've not simplified the fraction. Then with question D, it says here is some information about Saturday. So it says the number of customers is 150 and the number who order pudding is 50. And the question is saying that Eva thinks the fraction of customers who ordered pudding on Saturday is greater than on Friday. Is she correct? Well, here if we look at Saturday, we've got 50 over 150, which simplifies to be a third. So as a third is greater than a quarter, which was the fraction on Friday for who ordered puddings. Let me just make that fraction a little bit clearer. Or if you wanted to come write it as a decimal, as this is a calculator paper, then that's absolutely fine. You could then say that Eva is correct. Moving on to question 3. So here we've got a line graph. It says that a record was kept of the number of days that 25 students were absent in one term. The chart shows represents the results. Now the question is asking us to work out the mean number of days that people were absent. Now for this, what we need to do is create a frequency table. So here if I have my X, now the X values are the number of days that are absent. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the next thing I then need to do is create a frequency column. Now this here is my frequency. So all I'm going to do is going to just note how tall each of those bars are. So the first one is 5, then it's 6, then it's 8, then it's 2, and then it is 20. Nope, it is 4. So from this, what I then need to do is I then need to create a FX column. So from this, what we've then got, and the reason for that is because the mean is equal to the total FX divided by the total frequency. So this value here is the total frequency, and this total here is going to be the total FX. Now if you're wondering how do you calculate the FX value, all I've got to do is just simply multiply those two numbers together. So here, adding those numbers up, I get 25, and then multiplying across, I get 5, 2 times 6 is 12, 3 times 8 is 24, 4 times 2 is 8, and 5 times 4 is 20. Then adding all those numbers up, I get 69. So then from this, using this formula to work out the mean, it's going to be 69 divided by 25, and I type that into my calculator, I get 2.76. Now I can always check to see if that's correct. So I look at which bar is the most popular, which is 3. Is my answer close to 3? Yes, it is. So that seems like a very reasonable answer. So here the correct answer is 2.76. Now again, it's really important that you do show working out, particularly as it is worth 3 marks. The next question then says one student is chosen at random. Work out the probability that the student was absent for less than 4 days. So the total number less than 4 is, and again looking at this data again, just move up. So it's going to be 8 plus 6 plus 5. So 8 plus 6 plus 5, which is 19. So the answer then is going to be 19, and there were 25 students in total. That fraction can't be simplified, so the final answer then is 19 over 25. Now again, you would get 1 mark just for calculating that there were 19 students who were absent for less than 4 days. And remember that less than 4 does not actually include 4. Moving on to question 4, so another line graph question. It says the game is played 50 times. The vertical line chart shows the winning scores. And the question is asking us to work out the mode. Now the mode is the bar which is the tallest, and the bar with the tallest is 29. It then says the game is played again. Use the chart to estimate the probability that the winning score is 25. So looking at the frequency of 25, which is 4. And we look at how many games are played in total, which is 50. And I could leave my answer like that, but I can simplify it as 2 over 25. Now, with it being only worth 1 mark, you don't need to simplify those fractions, but I would always, as long as it's done correctly. The next question then says, use the chart to estimate the probability that the winning score is 27 or more. So for 27 or more, what I need to do is add the frequencies of 27, 28, 29, and 30. Remember that 27 is included in this one. So here it's going to be 8 plus 10 plus 14 plus 7. Again, these are all the heights of those 4 bars, and that equals 39. So because I want the probability, it's going to be 39 over 50. Moving on to question 5. So again, another line graph question. It says the diagram shows information about scores of class 3A in a spelling test, and the question is saying that a student is chosen at random from class 3A. Work out the probability that the student's score was the mode of the class. So here, if we write down what the actual mode is, and again, the mode is the most popular, the highest bar, which is 8. So here it's what's the probability? Well, it's going to be 8 out of, so the frequency of 8 is going to be 9, so therefore it's going to be 9 out of 27 in terms of this. So how have I got 27? It's just by adding these numbers up. So I've got 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 7 plus 9. And if I add those numbers up, so 2 plus 3 plus 6 plus 7 plus 9, and that equals 27. So the total class number, or the total in class, equals 27 students. Moving on to the next part, it says the diagram shows information about scores from class 3B in the same test, and it says that show that the class 3A had more consistent scores than class 3B. Now, measure of consistency is comparing is looking at the range. Now, the smaller the range, the more consistent. So what I need to do is I need to work out the range of the 2 classes. So here the range of class 3A, which is from the previous one. So I look at the bottom scale and I can see that it's going to be 8, which is the highest, take away 4. So that's going to give me a range of 4. Now looking at the above class of range of class B, 3B. So here the high score is 8, but the lowest one is 3, and that gives me a range of 5. So as class 3B has a smaller range, they are more consistent, and something along those lines would be more than enough to get you those 2 marks. Then says that Lucy is one of the 29 students in 3B. Her score was the same as the median score in the class. Work out her score. Now for this, there's a couple of ways in which you can do this, but I would say that to work out the median, you need to write down all the numbers in order and then find the middle number. Now if I do just that, then we see that we've got 2 3s, and again just recognizing that these are all separate numbers. I've got 2 4s, I've got 4 5s, so 5 5 5 5. I've then got 7 6s, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. I've then got 8 7s, so 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, and I've got 6 8, so 1 2 3 1 2 3. Then if I pick the middle number, you'll notice that the middle number therefore is 6. Another way of doing it is obviously if you add 1 to 29, so you do 29 plus 1 divided by 2 equals 15. So then it's going to be the 15th number along, and that then gives us 6. Moving on to question 6, it says the number of goals scored by 20 players in a season is shown. Work out the estimate of the mean number of goals per player. So for this, what we've got is we've got group data and we want to work out the estimated mean. Now the estimated mean is equal to the total fx divided by the total frequency. Now I know that the total frequency is 20, but what I need to do is I need to work out what the fx is. Now with group data, what you've got to do is use x as the midpoint of the group. And to work out the midpoint, if you don't know it, is just add the two numbers in the sort of lower or upper bounds together and divide by 2. So here 4 plus 0 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. 9 plus 5 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. And 14 plus 10 is 24, divided by 2 is 12. Then from this, what I then need to do is to work out the fx value is simply multiply those across. So here I've got 6 times 2, which is 12, 11 times 7, which is 77, and 3 times 12, which is 36. And then what I then need to do is add those numbers up, in which I get 125. So then the estimated mean is going to be 125 divided by 20, which gives me an answer of 6.25. Now, does that answer look correct? Well, yes, because the group with the highest frequency is 5 to 9, and my mean is just that. And again, I've given my answer as a decimal. Moving on to question 7. So here we've got frequency data, and part A then says work out the modal number of films watched. So here what we're looking for is the number of films that has got the greatest frequency. So here the greatest frequency is 8, but the first column is what I need to record. A lot of students tend to write down what the highest frequency is, but it's the modal number that I need to look at. So here the answer is going to be 2. It then says work out the mean number. So again, what I need to do is create an fx column. I haven't got group data, so all I've got to do is just multiply the first column by the second column and work those out. So here I've got 0, 9, 16, 18 and 8. And then if I add all of those numbers up, I get 51. So then the estimated mean is going to be the total of fx, which is 51, divided by the total frequency, which is 30, and that gives me an answer of 1.7. Does that seem correct? Well, yes, because the most popular groups were 1 and 2, and my answer is very close to those two numbers. Moving on to question 8, we're looking at a bar chart. So it says here is some information about goals scored in some hockey games. Each game has 4 quarters, and it says which quarter was the mode for the away goal. So I'm looking for which bar is the highest in grey, and that is our second quarter. Then says that there were, get rid of that cursor, there were 10 games. Work out the mean number of goals per game. So here what we need to do is we need to add up all the home goals together. And so if I add up the bars, so here I've got 4, 4, I've got 8, and I've got 9. So if I add up all those blue numbers together, I get an answer of 25. And if I change the color pen, so here I've got 2, I've got 8, I've got 7, and I've got 5. And again, if I add up all those green numbers together for the away goals, it comes up to a total of 22. So here then the total number of goals is going to be those two numbers added together, which is 47. So the mean number is going to be 47 divided by 10, which gives me an answer of 4.7. Moving on to question C, it says in total how many more home goals were scored than away goals? Well, I've kind of already worked that one out. So here the home was 25, the away was 22. So I take away those two numbers and I get an answer of 3. It then says that Rob says that more home teams must have won because the number of more home Rob says more home teams must have won because there were more home goals. Is he correct? And give you a reason for your answer. Now, there's a couple of reasons which you could specify. It's only worth 1 mark, but I would say that Rob is wrong. One of the home teams may have scored more of the goals than others. Or what you could say is that the score of one match may have been, I can spell, high scoring, where the others weren't. And again, you can look at the mark scheme to see if your answer fits, but I would say something along those lines to get the 1 mark should be absolutely fine. You would get no marks for just saying no, because obviously it does say that you do need to give your reason for your answer. Moving on to question 9, it says, here is some information about 50 houses. And again, what we need to do is we need to show that the mean number of bedrooms is less than 3. Now, this is really important. It's always important that you do refer, particularly with show that questions, is going back to show, just stating that sentence. So for this, what we need to do, we've got frequency data. So I need to create an FX column. And again, what I'm going to do is just multiply these 2 rows together. So from this, I've got 6 times 1, which is 6, 2 times 10, which is 20, 3 times 22, which is 66, 4 times 9, which is 36, and 5 times 3, which is 15. And if I add up all of those numbers together, I get 143. So then the estimated mean is going to be 143 divided by 50, which gives me an answer of 2.86. So therefore then, and what I then need to do is then show that this, so here 2.86 is less than 3. Now you can use inequalities, or you can just say basically that this is less than 3. And it's really important that you do state that, because it does say to show that the mean is less than 3. Moving on to question 10, it says the bar chart is drawn to show the number of people visiting a cinema in 1 month. And the question here is, and what the question is asking us to do is to give 1 criticism of the bar chart. Now there's a couple of criticisms you could give in terms of this. So the first one, I would say the most popular one, is that the vertical scale is not equal, in the fact that it jumps up by going up in 500, then all of a sudden the last one goes up by 1,000. Or you could say something along the lines of it's missing 2,500. Then moving on to question 11, it says, on a journey, Laura sees 30 vehicles. Each vehicle is a car, a van, or a lorry. And what she's done is she draws a bar chart. And here is our bar chart. And the question is asking us to give 2 criticisms. Now, I would say the most common criticisms you can give, and again, you can give these in any order, is that there's no equal spaces between the bar. Or should I say the bars. Another one is that letters are used, because again it could represent anything. I'll say that's pretty much a lukewarm one. But the other one is that the bars do not add up, so the frequencies do not add up to 30. And I would say the ones I would go for are probably going to be this one and the last one. Moving on to question 12, it says that a composite bar chart shows the number of students in some classes. And here we've got boys and girls. It says how many boys are there in the physics class. So looking at the dark grey section of the first bar, we just need to count up how many there are starting from 0, and we can see that we've got 8. It then says how many girls were there in the English class. So looking at the light grey box and counting from 13, I make it, and going up to 29. So it's going to be 29 take away 13, which gives me an answer of 16. It then says which 2 classes have the same number of total number of students. So collectively, which bars are the same, and that's going to be physics and French. And you can write those in any order. Then it then says in history class there are 18 students. The number of boys equals the number of girls. Show the information on the bar chart. So for this, what we need to do is make sure that we've got history here with equal space. So this is history. And I'm going to use a thinner pen. And so it is you do need to make sure that you're using a ruler. But again, I'm going to struggle. So I draw my height in my bar. It's got to be at 18, which is there. And then so that's the total bar. And then I need to divide 18 by 2, which gives me 9. That gives me there. And then what I'm going to do is just shade in the bottom bit to represent the boys, making the boys at the bottom because boys are at the bottom on each of the other bars. And then you can just lightly colour in the top, or I'd leave it as that. But as long as it's distinctive that the bar's been chopped in half and it's slightly shaded to differentiate it, then that should be absolutely fine. Question 13 says, what does the longest bar in a bar chart represent? And the mean, median, mode, or the range. And the correct answer you should have is the mode. It then says the table shows information about birds in a garden, and the question is asking us to show the information. So it goes all the way up to 5, and we've got 4 potential bars. So for this, I'm not going to space it out because I need to go up to 5, and I've got 9 boxes. So I'm going to go up in 1s, 3, 4, 5. I always go 1 extra, so I go to 6, and this is the frequency. And then we've got the birds. Now, as we've got 4, we need to make sure we've got space. So what I'm going to do is just create this. Let me just get rid of that birds bit and I'll label that after. And then we just need to label those. So the first one we've got is Robin. And let me just write that here. Then on the second one we've got Sparrow. Then the third bar is a wren. And the fourth one is a lark. Do not ask me what these birds look like. So then looking at this then, we can see that the first bar, and again, I would strongly recommend that you use a ruler and a pencil for this. Again, I'm going to struggle, so I'm not saying a very good example. So the robin should be 2 bars up. Again, colouring is completely optional. It should look like this, as neat as possible. The sparrow is 5, so that should go up to here. And again, what you want to do is make sure that you are using equal spaces. And again, a reminder, should be using a ruler, because you could lose marks if you don't. Obviously, again, not saying a good example, but I don't want this video lasting 10 hours. And then the next one is 3. And then the lark, probably not use red, is 1. So just make sure that you've got equal bars, the widths of the bars are all the same, and you've got the correct frequency, and that you've also labelled the 2 axes. Moving on to question 15. So now we move on to frequency trees. So its first question says that 500 people started a race. 280 were men and the rest were women. 80% of the men finished the race and 30 women did not finish the race. So what we need to use is we need to use this information to complete the frequency tree. So looking at the first one, we know that there are 280 men and the rest were women. So this is going to be 280, and I can fill in this bar by doing 500 minus 280, which gives me an answer of 220. So let me just write that one first and then on this one. For the next one, we know that 80% of men finished the race. So 80%, and the total number of men was 280. So if I do 0.8 times 280 on the calculator, I get 224. So this is going to be 224. And then for this one, it's going to be 280 minus 224, which gives me an answer of 56. It then says that 30 women did not finish the race, so this is going to be 30. And so to work out this one, it's going to be 220 minus 30, which gives me 190. And there I've completed my frequency tree. Moving on to question 16, it says that 56 customers pay for satellite television. They all have the basic package, which is £24.50. Some also have the sports package for £27.50 per month. Movie package is £18 extra per month. The frequency tree shows the number of customers with each package. And the question's asking us, in total, how much per month do the 56 people pay in total? So for this, let's have a look at the costing. So what you need to do is see how many people are paying extra for what. So we've got 56 people that pay the basic package, which is £24.50. So they all pay that. So 56 times £24.50. Now, we then have 21 people who have the sports package. So that's going to be 21 times £27.50. And we also have, how many people have movies? Well, that's going to be 14 plus 8. So if I just write here, so the movies subscribers is going to be 14 plus 8, which is 22. So it's going to be 22 people pay that extra £18. So if I then work out each of these three individual amounts, I get a total of £2,345.50. Moving on to question 17, it says that a takeaway sells 10-inch pizzas and 12-inch pizzas. Here are some information about the numbers sold in 2 weeks. And question A says, in each week, a proportion of the pizzas sold were 10-inch. In which week was the proportion greater? So looking at week 1 proportion, I'm going to be looking at 512 over the total, which is 743. So week 1, the proportion equals 512 divided by 743, and if I convert that as a decimal, I get 0.689 blah blah blah. Now if I do the same for week 2, so how many 10-inch pizzas were sold? Well, it's going to be 758 divided by the total number of pizzas, which was 1065, and if I convert that into a decimal, I get 7.11 blah blah blah. So then looking at which number gives me the highest answer, well, it's going to be week 2, if I can spell it correctly, which I cannot. So let's try that again. So the correct answer you should have is week 2. Moving on to B, it says the table shows the profit or loss of the takeaway, the loss the takeaway makes on each pizza. It says in week 1 the total profit was £1,895.55. At the end of week 1 the takeaway spent £175 on adverts. Was the increase in profits in week 2 more than the cost of the adverts? And it says that we must show our working out. So again, referring back to the information on the frequency tree, so looking at this, we've got the 10-inch sales. So looking at this, how many were sold at normal price? Was going to be 396 multiplied by how much profit was made, which was £3.74. I need to add that to how many pizzas in the offer were sold, which was 362. And because I'm making a loss, I'm going to multiply that by 0.51 because I've lost 50. Well, they've lost 51 pence for every pizza sold. Now looking at the 12 inches, doing the same calculation, how many pizzas were sold at normal price? Well, it was 164, and I'm going to multiply that by 5.28, and I'm then going to add it to how many were sold in the offer, which was 143, and I multiply that by a 4 pence loss, which is minus 0.04. So if I then work that out, so here I've got an answer of 1296.42. And here I've got an answer of 861.84. And if I add those two numbers up, the total sales, or total profit I should say, for week 2 is going to be a total of 2,158.26. Now from this, what I then need to do is work out the difference. So the difference, which is week 2 minus week 1, spelled with 2 E's, not 3, is going to be 2158.26 minus the profit made in week 1, which was 1895.55, and that comes up to a total of 262.71 pence. So do they have enough? Did they overspend or underspend? No, they're absolutely fine. So yes, it covers the cost, and then as 262.71 pence is greater than 145. Moving on to question 18, it says, at a cinema, films are shown on screen 1 and screen 2. Customers pay full price or child price. There are 3 times as many customers in screen 2 as there is in 1. 68 customers paid child price. Complete the frequency tree. So let's have a look at completing this. So from this, we can see that we've got 3 to 1. So in terms of screen 1 and 2, so if I wrote screen 1 to screen 2, now this information here says there's 3 times as many in screen 3, so the ratio is going to be 1 to 3. Now I know that in looking at the frequency diagram, that in screen 1 there were 87, so that means that 87 people equal 1 part, so 3 parts is going to be 3 times 87, which gives me an answer of 261. So this answer here is going to be 261. So for this block here, what we need to do is that's the grand total, so that's going to be 261 plus 87, which gives me an answer of 348. Then it then says that 68 people pay child price. Well, if 15 are in screen 1, then for screen 2, it's going to be 68 take away 15, which gives me an answer of 53. Then from these, because I know the child numbers, I can then work out what the adult numbers are going to be, or the full price ones are going to be. So this block here is going to be 87 minus 15, which gives me an answer of 72. And this one here is going to be 261 minus 53, which is 208. Moving on to question 19, it says 500 people were asked if they drink coffee. 9/10 said yes. 20% of the people who said yes drink at least 3 cups each day. Complete the frequency tree. So from this, let's have a look. So looking at the first thing, let's work out what 9/10 of 500 is going to be. So I just need to do 9 over 10 times 500 on the calculator, and that comes up to 450. So this is going to be 450, which means then this one is going to be 50 from doing 500 take away 450, and there we go. Then looking at this block here, well, that's going to be 20% of 450. Well, 10% is 45, so therefore 20% is going to equal 90. So then this block here is going to be 450 minus 90, which is 360. Then moving on to the B, it says what fraction of the 500 drink at least 3 cups of coffee each day? Well, how many drank at least 3 cups? That was 90 out of 500. And then it says give it your answer in the simplest form. So if I just enter that on the calculator, press equals, it should simplify to give me 9 over 50. Moving on to question 20, it says 50 people took a test. Before the test, they predicted whether they would pass or fail. 30 people predicted they would pass. 36 people did pass. Of the 36 people, 3 times as many predicted pass as predicted fail. And then what we need to do is use this information to complete the tree. So looking at the first one, we know that 30 people predicted to pass, so this number here is going to be 30. Then what I can then do is then therefore this is going to be 20. That's number 2. Then for number 3, what I then need to do is I need to then share 36 in the ratio of 3 to 1, where 3 is pass and 1 is fail. Now from this, so what I then do is do 36 divided by 4, which equals 9. So 3 times 9 is going to give me 27, and 1 times 9 is going to give me 9. So from this, I then know that this is going to be 27, and this is going to be 9. And then I can then work out what these missing numbers here are going to be. So that's going to be 30 take away 27, which is 3. And this is going to be 20 minus 9, which is 11. And now we've completed our frequency tree. So moving on to question 21, it says that 240 people go to a rugby match, 183 of the people support the home team, the other people support the away team, 162 of the supporters are male, 45 of the away supporters are male. Complete the frequency tree. So some of that information has been already inputted, but we need to complete the blank data. So the first one to complete is this one here, and I do this one by doing 240 minus 183, which gives me an answer of 57. Now once I've got that total, I can then work out what this one here is going to be by doing 57 minus 45, which is 12. Now to work out the number of males, it says that 162 are male and 45 of them are in the away section. So to work out this block here, I need to do 162 minus 45, so this is number 3 that I'm filling in, and that gives me an answer of 117. And then to work out this one here, all I then need to do is the total, which is 183 of the home supporters, take away the males, and that gives me an answer of 66. Moving on to estimate probability now, it says that a biased coin is thrown 250 times. The relative frequency of heads is worked out after 50 throws. Click the best estimate for the probability of heads. Now the best estimate is always going to be the one with the most number of trials, and the one with the most number of trials is this last block here, and the relative frequency is 0.3, so that is the one that I want to be ticking. Moving on to question 23, it says that circle the relative frequency that represents 13 successes out of 50 trials. So for this, all I need to do is do 13 divided by 50. As on the calculator, just type in your calculator and you should have the answer of 0.26 circled. Moving on to question 24, it says a coin is thrown 50 times, it lands on the head 30 times, so that's going to be 30 divided by 50, which simplifies to be 3 over 5, which again is our last option. Moving on to question 25, it says that a spinner lands on a red, blue or green. The relative frequency after 400 spins is shown. How many more times does it land on a red than it does the green? Now to work out the total frequency, what we need to do is we need to do the relative frequency times the total number of trials. And that will give us the frequency. So from this, to work out the red, so I'm going to do 0.35 multiplied by 400, and that gives me an answer of 140. Now if I do the same for green, that's going to be 0.15 times 400, and that gives me 60. So then I do 140 take away 60, which gives me an answer of 80.